We looked at the dashboard and saw that there was a definite spike after we updated the listings page. When your turnaround time was pretty short.
There was a valid concern that you had raised.
But still, another way, I went with what you said.
I convinced you against.
Yeah.
Everybody can create messaging on their own. What made you feel that you should hire an expert or an outsider?
I started with putting my own listing, like, when we actually submit to Monday, we have to give some app description and all. But I was not satisfied with what was out there. The description earlier was more in terms of features than a specific customer or their job to be done kind of language, especially because this was a multi-persona horizontal kind of add-on. So I didn't know whether, okay, whatever I put out was good or bad, but the results were not satisfactory. There is some traction, but the conversions could be much better, or attracting the right kind of customers could be much better.
Obviously, you had shown the demo of the product, but we didn't stop with just that. We looked at your conversations with customers and partners that you'd had until that time. You shared some call transcripts, some recordings also. We actually went into all of that before even we wrote a single word.
We had done a lot of research earlier, but then we had used that research more in terms of product, what kind of things should be built. I didn't see that as something that, okay, this same material could actually be used to create the listing page. I'd looked at it from a product manager's perspective, not as a product marketer's perspective. If you look at a customer, when they're coming to the listing, they've not seen the product yet, right?
Yeah.
So what is in the product is not going to matter to them at all, right? If they're coming, and this research is for earlier users, it was based on demand, right? It was not based on the product, right? So I think, I really appreciate that, that perspective came through, that this is what the market says it wants. How do we package it? What should be on the package label, or, on the front facing somebody when first time customer comes in. I think that was really helpful. And even your turnaround time was pretty short, and even budget wise also, it was pretty good.
Okay, so there was an interesting conversation we had about the listing page inside Monday. There was a valid concern that you had raised that we need to talk about the problem in detail before we talk about the solution. First of all, do you remember that conversation?
I remember a little bit, but still another way, I went with what you said.
You remember that I convinced you against?
Yeah. The word that you used was, these users are not cold. If these were cold users, then you actually talk about the problem and then connect it to the solution. But these are users that are actually actively looking for a solution. Let's say search somewhere and then they come up here. So they are exploring if this solution good for me. They are not expecting you to repeat the problem that they have. Imagine if somebody with a pain goes to a doctor, and the doctor, instead of prescribing medicine, they talk about, why people have this problem. And right, it would be like, why tu dawa de?
That was very flexible of you to be willing to try that approach, even though it was counterintuitive.
Another thing that we discussed was, anyway, this is a reversible decision. It's not an irreversible thing, right? So if it doesn't work out, then we can try it out later.
How did you measure the performance or success?
There was something in Monday's dashboard that kind of gives, how many people come to this listing. And after that, how many people actually install the app. I think both of us, after 1 or 2 months, we looked at the dashboard and saw that there was a definite spike after we updated the listings page. Working.
There are many founders who are very wary of going with external consultants for positioning and messaging kind of things. What would you say to them as somebody who has already tried it?
So I think I'll put it both ways. I've had conversations with consultants where it didn't work out after a few calls, and there were some consultants where it worked out, right? And then after actually using a lot of AI tools, you realize the importance of context, right? So they were earlier consultants where it didn't work out, where they were not putting the initial effort to understand the problem, right? So they had a way of working in mind, and they were like, okay, how do I apply it to this? So what I would tell them is, if there is somebody they are exploring, see how do they react in the initial calls. Are they asking questions, or are they trying to get more context? If you have taken certain decision, it's okay. The consultant can say that that's a wrong decision, right? But at least they should do some discovery to arrive as to why you have done that decision. Because you are the one who is going to own the decision and be accountable for the outcomes, right? That means you should have enough trust in the consultant. And then, okay, if they are picking holes, they are picking holes at the right places, not saying that, okay, don't do this, do this. See if there is a chemistry, mental bandwidth matches, and then go ahead.